Welcome to Soundbreaker. In today's episode, we're talking to Jeff Lupker and Jason Kowalczyk. Did I pronounce it right? I think I
Absolutely.
did. Who are the co-founders of Staccato. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today on Soundbreaker. And for our listeners who might not be familiar with you guys, please introduce yourself. I guess we'll start with Jeff, then Jason, if that's
Cool.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Bob. So yeah, I come from a background of I've been a professional musician for about 20 years now. I play less shows now than I used to, but I still get some in there, which is great. I play guitar mostly and keyboards, and then I have a whole host of other instruments at home. So it's just really kind of filled up in here. I got my PhD from Western University in London, Ontario. Really, what I was doing there is I was focusing on deep learning in music. I was really interested in kind of all the language models that were going on at the time, but then how can we re-architect them, rework them, and make them work with music? So I spent a lot of time doing that. I spent a lot of time also making kind of web apps, live coding for music, so where you actually code on stage and then it makes music come out. So really, when I got to grad school, it was just anything to do with tech and music, and that's what I was interested in.
Oh, amazing combination. I mean, shall we call you Dr. Jeff? You did earn it. So if he wants to
Sure, yeah,
address you,
that's
we
great.
can. Dr. Jeff.
It's very rarely used, but that's great.
Yes. Jason?
Yeah, so I do not have quite as cool and fascinating of a background as Jeff. I'm the business guy in the whole staccato thing. I actually,
Yes.
I am obsessed with music though. I used to go to like 50 concerts a year. Live music was my thing. But before this,
Yeah.
I was actually a forensic accountant. So I used to travel around the world and investigate fraudsters. So yeah, I bring the business side of everything to this. And basically, Jeff and I are brothers-in-law. Jeff approached me just over a year ago with this idea and for what we're doing that we'll get into. And I just became more and more obsessed and thought this is the coolest thing ever. This is going to be the future. And so I dove
Bless
head first and quit my job in November of last year and doing it full time now.
Well, you said you don't have an interesting background, but you do. The word forensic by itself, it's a whole encyclopedia. I love
I
that.
appreciate that.
Yes, amazing. Gentlemen, before we dive into it, just if you guys could give me just a small little history. I know Jeff said, well, you said that, you used to play for bands. So what really got you started? Like I would say, if we go back your teenage years, what influenced you? Was it your parents or bands or friends or cousins or relatives to kind of put you on that path, music and tech later?
Musically, not my parents for sure. They're both tone deaf. Not to knock them right off the top for this podcast, but as a friend of mine, he came up to me and said we should learn guitar before we get to high school. And I was on a trip in San Diego and Los Angeles with my parents, and we went across the border into Tijuana. And this guy was trying to sell us a $30 guitar, and it was terrible. But I told my dad that I wanted to play guitar. So he said, well, why don't you just start on this? And if you like it, then we can look into sort of a better one. And so then I got that guitar and I couldn't play chords because it was so bad, but I could play Smoke on the Water on one string. So I played Smoke on the Water for the entire rest of the trip and in all the car rides. I drove everybody crazy. But that's really kind of where it all began. As soon as I got my hands on a real guitar, it went from kind of casually learning with my friend to just obsessing over it. And it's all I did for the rest of high school was guitar. And then very quickly it became taking the old family computer when you had one in a computer room. It's not like everyone had laptops then. And I would just sit in front of it and I'd try to record music. And then as soon as I basically dabbled in recording music and an electric guitar with all the pedals that you could get, that's where I was like, oh, I just want to figure out all the different ways that you can make sound. So what can you connect into things and what can you do to the recorded sound to manipulate it? And it really just took off from there. It was just how good can I get at guitar and how good can I get at messing with all the sound once it's recorded? And then AI was kind of the natural fit sort of many, many years later into that kind of world.
Amazing. Jason.
Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
No, it's all right. No, we just wanted to get a little bit of history. What really, I mean, you were obviously in finance, so you got into the music business by an invitation from a good friend of yours, Jeff.
Yeah.
I was gonna, my question is always to my guest, if we go back to your teenage years, what influenced you to kind of carve your way into that path of whatever you wanted to do? Obviously, in your case, it's finance. It wasn't no music. Were you a part of a band? Did you play any instruments?
Played instruments for sure when I was a teenager.
Yes. I mean, it's pretty interesting. Somebody in finance and somebody in music tech got together and formed a great alliance with the Staccato company, or brand. And it's
Yeah.
pretty interesting. Yes.
Yeah, I think it works well for us in terms of the business and music combination, right? Like
Yes,
a balance.
absolutely, absolutely. Jeff, how did your early experience in music education shaped your path into the music tech and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so like I said, I was always interested in tech, but it was really kind of grad school that allowed me the time and the resources. Resources being advisors, conferences. I worked with not only for my PhD, not only an advisor in music, but also one that was in computational linguistics. So that was really kind of a missing piece of the puzzle in terms of how do we look at how words work with these kind of AI models, and how do we figure out that relationship for music as well. And so that really helped me dive into music tech a lot. And then in terms of kind of entrepreneurship, it's sort of stumbling into it. I mean, there's some level of it for being a professional musician, is that you do learn the basics of entrepreneurship. So you have to learn kind of what your product is, but your product is you. So how do you make that product the best product it can be? And then how do you
Hmm.
market that? How do you basically go into different bands? Usually it's just a single opportunity, and then you have to show them, well, this is why I'm better to have than these other people. So besides that, then I did some consulting after my PhD because I just needed a break from academia. But what I really quickly learned was that I was getting bored of just kind of integrating AI models into whatever random business they wanted it. And I knew there had to be some sort of music relationship for what I was doing with all of that kind of stuff. So that's when I called up Jason and I said, hey, this is what I had been working on. This is the passion project. This is what I think the world is headed in terms of music. So let's do something here because I'm tired of the console stuff that has nothing to do with music.
Amazing. Jason, how did your roles at Big Four firm helped and prepared you for entrepreneurship?
Thanks, Bob. Good question. So big four firms, and I guess for anyone who doesn't know, that's like one of the big four accounting consulting firms that kind of have this oligopoly over the market globally. And I worked there for over 7 years, doing a whole bunch of different things in terms of business consulting, finance, and ultimately ended up in forensic accounting. And the interesting thing about forensic accounting is that it's in between accounting and law. You're really like you're putting the story together of what happened with your cases, and then you're going all the way through to prosecution in some cases of what you're doing.
Mm,
And a lot of people say that two of the first outside companies you'll hire as a founder of a company are your accountant and your lawyer. So it's kind of the fact that I had that skill set has saved us a good chunk of money so far coming into this. And I think the second aspect of it is storytelling. People will often say that storytelling is the most important skill set you can have of a company for a lot of different reasons, whether it's selling your product or selling your vision to investors, whatever you're doing. And
correct.
really, telling the story of financial crimes that I was looking into historically, it's a different kind of storytelling, but it still relays quite well to telling the story of a business I found. So yeah, I found it very helpful in that circumstance. You there, Bob?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We're here. We're waiting on you. It's all right.
Oh, sorry. I didn't. I
Your
guess
side froze. You
I
froze
think
a
you
little.
froze for me, and I missed the question. Yeah.
No, you did answer. Absolutely. You answered it. Jeff, what were some of the pivotal challenges that you faced in transitioning from academia to founding?
One of the changes that I think most people go through that I don't associate with will be a better one
Mm,
for Jason. Typically,
yes.
that's around salary, which is people take a huge cut to move into entrepreneurship. One nice thing about going from academia and grad school into doing a startup is there's kind of no change in lifestyle. You're a poor grad student, you go into a poor startup
Hmm.
owner. So that was
Hmm.
pretty lateral move in that standpoint, which is great. Less scary in a way. In terms of kind of actual stuff, there's a lot more that kind of goes into it in the entrepreneurship side. So when you're just working by yourself and I'm writing code and all that kind of stuff, I don't have to answer to anyone really because it just has to work for me. It can be kind of bad code. It can be not very
Hmm.
optimized, not very fast. And so long as it works for me, I can accomplish kind of whatever research project I'm working on or whatever I'm trying to write about. But as soon as we started to scale it, that was a whole different animal. So that's really where it got difficult, where I had to think about not only will this work, but if 1,000 people at the same time are trying to generate music on our platform, is it going to work for all of them? And is it going to work for them as seamlessly as it did for me writing my dissertation? So that was quite a big
Challenge.
change in terms of
Yeah.
moving from academia into entrepreneurship. And then the other one too is that it's not all product development, where in academia I'd say it's sort of all product development where you're trying to figure out your experiment and figure out what you're going to do. And then the last tail end is kind of writing up all of your experiences. So it's kind of, there's a big time management aspect too, from moving into academia into this world where it's balancing actually showing off the product to other people or talking to people that are going to use the product and making those fixes and not just constantly building, even though that's definitely a fun aspect of it.
Jason, what were some of the biggest challenges you encountered moving from forensic accounting to co-founding?
Yeah, I had a lot of experience in the business world, like over a decade of experience. So I felt comfortable with that and with all the meetings and everyone that we chat with. I think the biggest challenge for me is in the old world, everything was very factual. Everything was, here's the legal facts, here's the financial facts, here's what happened, here's the result. In the startup world, there are a lot of people who like to bend the truth. I've noticed that quite a lot amongst a lot of startup founders.
Well put together. I like that. Bend the truth.
Yeah. Like, they like exaggerate to make themselves sound a lot bigger than they are, which is kind of what you have to do in order to sell. I mean, what some people feel that they have to do in order to sell their business, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you need to actually do that. I think it's better to be factual in what you do, but it does make it a bit more challenging because the people who tend to advise startups in certain circumstances also, in some cases, can be those people who bend the truth as well. And so you get a lot of advice coming in while you're doing this in terms of how to build the business and how to build the product. And you don't necessarily know what to listen to and what not to listen to. I think in the old world, everyone would want to tell you it as it, and that's how you should be doing it. In the startup world, you have to be selective with what you're listening to and the facts that you're accepting. So that's what I think is a challenge for me.
Interesting. Well, a question for both of you gentlemen. I'm excited. I cannot wait to hear more about it. Staccato. Please tell us about Staccato. Our viewers and listeners of Soundbreaker also anticipating to know about Staccato. So whoever wants to, please.
Yeah, so Staccato, essentially what it is its core, it's a co-writer for musicians and creators. I think the idea of what a music creator is also changing. I don't think you have to start with a guitar. I don't think you have to start with piano. I don't even think you have to necessarily start with some knowledge of recording software anymore. I think we're getting to this world where you can simply describe what you're looking for, and we're looking to be kind of a big answer to that. So we don't want to make it where you just describe something and some sort of music pops up in that realm. We want it to be as high quality as the music that's sort of being generated by humans. Now, with that, we don't want to replace the humans as well. So at the core of all of this is that we're creating something that actually makes the human or creators better. And it doesn't fully rely on sort of AI or computers to make every decision for you. There's been a lot of precedent this in the past in terms of music composition and creation, where a lot of people have used tools and systems and all of that kind of stuff to make music, but they've always relied on a central composer or creator figure to kind of control and wield these systems as they go on. So we still feel, even though the technology has reached a certain point, that ultimately the creator itself is the most important part. So right now we offer a version of this through our website, which is more dedicated towards musicians. More so right now as we start professional and serious hobbyist musicians, where they can record some of their music or they can describe what they're looking for, and we'll give them suggestions along the way. And then also there's a version that is out, beta version that's out on Adobe Express. For those that don't know how to sort of finish and polish all the music, we'll sort of connect more of the dots for them, and we'll bring in those digital instruments that are extremely high quality, and they'll be able to get the music that they're looking for that goes for their TikTok or Instagram videos kind of instantly right there for them. Then we always make sure that we give a couple of samples as they're going, because we don't want to tell people how they should create music. It shouldn't just be one single sample that comes out. It should be a few, because music's so subjective that we always want to make sure we're fitting their vision for what the video or the content or music that they're trying to create. It always has to go back to them.
Interesting. So if I'm a musician, I come into Staccato and platform, and I have a song, but I created, I'm a composer. I did it in my studio, and I feel it's not yet there. It's missing certain elements. It didn't get me that goosebumps. Like, yes, this is it. Now I got it. And if let's say, I can bring it in, and then Staccato, the platform, the technology, AI technology you guys built, it helps finish it, take it to that level.
Yeah, the best way to use it is when you actually know how to do most of the song yourself, but you're looking for ideas and a way forward. So That might be you're just stuck. You have writer's block
Mhm.
and you don't know what the next part should be. And you just need a bunch of ideas that maybe take you to
Amazing.
that spot. Sometimes it's not even that what we suggest or what the program suggests is the entire answer. Maybe it's only
Mhm.
10, 20% of what they suggested, but it's
Mhm.
just whatever gives you that aha spark moment in your head where then you know
Mhm.
exactly where it should go from there. And then sometimes too, it's maybe you're writing in a new style that you're not as comfortable with. And we can sort of help bring that kind of library database
Mhm.
knowledge of what that style contains. And then you can mix it with your own feelings toward it to get to that goal and to find that creative moment that sort of takes it to the finishes off that section of the song or the whole song itself.
Can you share an example how Staccato has enhanced musicians' creative process?
Yeah, I can do two. So I can do one that's how it all kind of began, which
Yeah.
was with me back in grad school. Part of my dissertation, because it was in music composition,
Yeah.
was that I needed to write a 25-minute string quartet. And I only ever written probably about 10 to 12 minutes of music. So I knew for sure I was going to hit a million moments of writer's block along the way. So I built the software initially to help just me. And so I would write as much as I could or whatever I was inspired by. And then I would put it in the program and it would show me what it thought should come next. But I would also train it on my own music. So it wasn't just what it thought should come next, it was what it thought based on all of my music should come next. And so me and early version of Staccato finished this 25-minute string quartet and I graduated. So I like to think that it was successful to some degree. And that was kind of really the first version of it. And that's what sort of solved my own writer's block.
Wow. So Staccato was created while you were still in college.
I would say like the MVP was
The
essentially
MVP. Yeah, but the
started
whole
during
idea
rotation.
came together. But did you create it as something that you wanted to build as a business or just for your own self?
It started just for myself, but then it was through how it solved my own problems. And then how, when I talked to colleagues of mine that were also musicians and seeing kind of what their pains were as creators, that's where I noticed that there was this kind of need in the market and this kind of direction for it. And that's where I contacted Jason shortly after and said, okay, this is what I've seen. This is kind of a little customer discovery through myself and people around me. Let's take this
Mhm.
further.
And also
Amazing.
keep in mind, Bob, that was before Jeff was doing this before ChatGPT, before any of that stuff, like before AI really took off, before there were many big AI music
Mhm.
companies. So he had that vision, and that's what I find.
Absolutely. You guys were ahead of the curve, I would say. Gentlemen, looking ahead, what do you envision for Staccato future in the music technology landscape?
So, a big part of why we're doing all this is a lot of musicians and creators are in this gig economy where their livelihoods really depend on their output. So, with this rise of other music tools where you simply, like I was saying, you write in a little
Yeah.
prompt, it does the whole thing for you,
Mhm.
it's not really that high quality and it sort of regurgitates everything that exists up until that point. But we
Mhm.
want to create a tool that continues to push art and music further. All of the composers so far have done. So the vision for this really is to solve this pain point of my livelihood is dependent on me creating stuff, but there are these tools that are trying to get rid of that by just sort of making music creation super fast. And not only that, even if there is room for both, it might devalue what the human can do because the other one can do it faster, even if it's not better. So we want to
Yeah.
give them all the tools to basically survive in this world. There are tools that are going to regurgitate audio files, but it's not going to push art any further. So we want to give the
Mhm.
tools to the musician to be able to push art further, but also be as prolific at the same time as the ones that kind of fully automate this audio file generation. So really the way to do that is to get into wherever creators like to work best. So either that's on our site if they prefer the browser way, either that's through Adobe Express, like we're slowly building out there. We're also going to be rolling it out to some of their more flagship products too. And then any of the other software that creators and music creators like to work. We want to be right there integrated with them so that they feel kind of comfortable and fast and still generating the highest quality music and not feeling like they have to succumb to this doomsday environment that seems to be kind of permeating this industry.
Amazing. Staccato, the platform to go to. Gentlemen, you see it. I see it. Everybody see it. We'll talk about just the music. There's a lot of AI platforms, a lot of AI music tools that have been popping up everywhere. And I'm noticing also there's a lot of AI tools kind of copying others. Like I have mine, but mine it does this little extra thing, or mine does a little extra. And I'm sure you've seen it. I know it's going to get not flooded, but they'll be a little bit oversaturated. And I'm sure then it'll be only the best ones going to stand out. What makes Staccato stand out between all of these platforms that have been popping up left and right, and some of them similar to what you guys do?
Yeah, the number one thing is just the quality of the output. And then the number two is that the ability to edit output as you do. So we're not going to give you the full song for you because I don't think that that does anything for music and art. We were going to help you get to that sort of finished song or finished audio and all that kind of stuff. So we want to be a part of your journey, but we don't want to do the journey for you. In terms of what you're saying, the oversaturation of AI tools for music.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, this is not uncommon from a lot of music software. There's a lot of oversaturation for plugins, for different types of music software, for mastering suites, mixing suites, all of that kind of stuff. It always happens, but there's always a ton that's extremely gimmicky. And then people will always navigate to the ones with the highest quality output. So any software that you look at right now, you're going to find tons of examples, but then you're going to find a small subset of that where everybody's actually using it. And the other key too is that musicians are loyal to the products that work well for them and work well for their workflow. So if you have the highest quality and it's ethical at the same time, it's going to help them out and not steal their music at the same time, people will resonate to that and then they'll stick with it. They won't go as likely to another competitor unless they obviously you keep up with having the coolest tools. But I think the key is just staying away from the gimmicks. Like, yes, there is these open source models that everybody seems to be throwing a website around and calling it music AI, but they don't really know how to train it, or they train it on all of Spotify. And so they're getting sued right now, or they're training it on poor quality music, or they don't know how to train it and they're relying on the open source model to be good enough. So you just have a lot of stuff that's not great quality out there, or that isn't really solving any of the actual creators' issues. It's just doing something because it's cool.
I mean, in my opinion, who've been around, I wouldn't say so many, but I come across a lot of tech AI startups. And to me, some of the best, AI tech music startups are the ones that really, and I met a lot on both sides, but the ones that one of the founders are actually the software engineer, the main coder, the first person who said, okay, this is the idea we have and I'm going to code it. To me, they are the best or the most, and I think to me, success is imminent to them because one of the founders is actually the actual software engineer. And in this case, and you got a PhD, that's even way more. And yes, and especially with your partner Jason, who is also involved in accounting and money, and everything does rides on money. You have the talent and the creativity, innovation, and you have the money management. So that is definitely a great marriage, and I could see definitely Staccato is one of the top platforms that on the rise now and in the near future. We both and all of us heard about the some of the biggest AI music companies out there involved in a big major lawsuit with the major 3 record labels or major 4. Copyright infringement because they're being trained on music that they don't have the rights to and all of that jazz. If you guys tell us about the lawsuit, if you guys know about it, and how does Staccato avoid such issues?
Yeah, I don't think we have too much more insight than kind of what's out there, but it's definitely interesting. I mean, this is part of why I didn't start with just pure audio from the start, even back when I was working on this in my PhD, because I knew this was going to happen. I knew that as soon as somebody was making enough money that they were suable, that all the record labels would sue them. And then sure enough, yeah, you've got the 2 sort of biggest ones, at least right now, getting sued. And it's because they basically allegedly took all of their music from the Spotify catalog. And I think I'm correct here. The catalog that Spotify uses in Apple Music and Amazon Music, there's one giant catalog that everybody uses. Some might have different access to different artists, but largely most of the catalog is exactly the same. So you're training it on the same giant catalog that everybody has. So you have the potential to create good music, but at a huge cost where you're annoying everybody and they're getting sued. But also, I don't see the point if we're going after creators, what breaking all these copyright rules really does for you. Because then people, the serious people and the people that want to create really interesting new music, they're not going to resonate and use that product because they know that their music is going to be chopped up added to somebody else's song too. Even if it's just a single
Mhm.
second or something like that too, there's still IP that is yours, that it's going into somebody else's platform. So I don't see the benefit personally to even do the copyright. Besides making a cool product that can regurgitate existing songs, it's
Mhm.
not worth it, because there's a stat I saw too where that AI The Weeknd song, or AI Drake,
Yes.
which
Mhm.
sounded like Drake and all that kind of stuff, there was something like it's been streamed 20 million times, but by 20 million people. So that means everybody listened to it once and then never listened to it again. So I think it's got a cool factor if you steal the music and train on it and go, look what I can do. But then everybody goes, yeah, but I don't care. I know it's not real. So they're not interested in it. So we stay
Mhm.
away from it, obviously, because of the ethical aspect of it, but also because I just don't see what it does to music. I don't see the interest sort of long term for that and creating an actually musician focused product. Because I come from all this as a musician, so I'm always trying to think of like, what does a musician want to see in a
Yes.
product? And obviously, it's not my music going somewhere else to make somebody else some money.
And that's what I forgot to add that. Beside being a developer, a coder, a software engineer, and carrying a PhD, also a musician. So you do understand music, the scientific side of it also. What makes it very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's the key is that for building a really compelling
Yes.
kind of music product is that you should have part of your founding team, big element of music, but not only just because of all the sort of insight it brings, but because of you're going to make a better quality product because you know kind of
Well,
what is exciting, what makes you want to use it essentially at the end of the day.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, you gentlemen got my vote on it, and Soundbreaker vote that you guys have all the elements in place: the finance that carries everything, and the innovation and the music side. So definitely.
Appreciate it.
Yes, you guys, I understand, also added a couple of new members to Staccato Advisory Board, Mark Berry and Dwayne Farley. Can you tell us about that, please?
Yeah,
Sure,
for sure.
I'll let Jason answer because I've been answering most of it.
Well, you have the good insight, Jeff. So I gotta let you talk. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so Mark Berry added me on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, and
Yes.
Mark Berry is a very well-renowned music and film producer. He's worked with Paul McCartney, with Drake and Drake's team, Carly Simon, some other big names. And I saw that ad come in on LinkedIn. I thought, wow, this is really cool. So I shot him a message and we set up a call. Got to know one another. Last week we headed out to the Mark's offices, the AMG office, which is run by him and Dwayne Farley. And
Mhm.
we came together and thought, this could turn out to be a really good partnership. And so brought on Mark and Dwayne to our advisory board at Staccato. We're
Mhm.
really happy to have them on board.
Some freezing
And
again.
we're also happy.
Yes.
Did I cut out there?
It's all right. You can carry on.
You froze
You
right
froze
on.
for
We added them to our advisory board.
Okay. We
yes.
added them to our advisory board. Sorry about that for the tech issues.
It's
And
okay.
we have some really exciting projects that are going to be coming up in the next few weeks to few months with AMG. And we're very excited for those. I can't talk too
And
much about
I was going to say, you want to announce it here on Soundbreaker. By the time possibly the episode get released, it'll be probably perfect timing to
I'll
drop.
hold off for now.
Okay.
Maybe if
Okay.
you have us back in the future, Bob, we could talk about it. But
Okay. I know about it, but I won't say nothing. I know about it, but I
yeah,
won't say
we just want to make sure it's
absolutely.
gotta
It's a
sign
big
all the
project.
documents.
It's a big project. It is a big project. I'm very excited for you guys. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes. So, what new development, tech, science, and society do you find most fascinating right now?
If I answer this just from outside of music and just from what I see and what I would love to pay more attention to, it's I love all the VR and AR and spatial computing stuff. I haven't bought any headsets or anything, the Apple Vision Pro or anything like that. But to me, that strikes me as kind of the most interesting thing that's coming out is because what we're doing is we're interested in how do we change the face of music creation or and then ultimately consumption and way it's used and performance and all that kind of aspect.
Yeah.
But they take that even further, and that really excites me for where we can take what we're doing now and bring it into this even more digitally immersed world
Yeah.
of AR and sort of immersing yourself in this kind of different planet. And how would the music
Mm,
kind of work with that? And how could we, how are the creators going to change once it gets into that world? So, in terms of just globally, what seems interesting, that
mm.
really strikes me extremely something to watch.
I mean, what do you think? Somebody who a musician in the tech world and in the music tech side. How do you think the future of music, as you said, the word consumption, will take place? How are we going to consume content, whether it's visual and audio, with music and movies? I think that will dictate. To me,
Yeah,
always the way we communicate. That's how we're going to consume content,
yeah,
and mixed reality and metaverse has a lot to do with it. Please.
yeah. It seems really interesting. I know we're getting little tidbits of it. We're getting like the holographic Tupac at Coachella. There's some concerts that are going on Fortnite, for example. So you're starting to dabble in this blending of kind of still
Mm.
lots of people at a concert or lots of people at a concert, but all through the digital world.
What
And I
about
think,
Sphere? Also, that kind
yeah,
of
our Sphere is
yeah, yeah.
super cool for that. I think it's just going to be a blend. I think it's just going to be kind of what your personality likes. So I don't think there's going to be an end to concerts. I think the pandemic proved that people want to be around other people and watch the
Absolutely.
same music and kind of head bob at the same time and everything. So
Yeah.
I think that really kind of validated that concerts are here to stay. And I mean, they're making more money on concerts than they ever have in the past. But I think for
Yes.
people that can't afford it or can't travel or whatever, like I'm in London, so I have to go to Toronto to see any compelling concert most of the time.
Hmm.
So sometimes
Hmm.
you don't want to make even just the 2 hour trip, but there's people that are going to have to go even farther. So for them, if they
Yes.
just have like a couple $100 headset and they can get into this digital world with their avatar self and watch a band and still have really high quality audio and all of that, that's pretty interesting too. I think it's just different. I don't think it's going to take over, but I think it's going to be another route for artists to promote their music and perform their music.
I think it's going to be more. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, no worries. We had this interesting call just to add to that last week with someone who used to work in A&R for one of the big labels for many years, and they
Yes.
were exploring things there in terms of VR. And he brought up this great point of like, when you're in your 20s and you want to go to a concert or a music festival, if you're happy to go to one of these and stand in the mud or like the hot sun and 90 plus degree weather for 3 days and feel uncomfortable. But for Jeff and I, we're in our 30s now, struggling to stand through something like that for a few days. If you just put on your VR headset and watch the whole show from home, it's pretty compelling, right? Like just even if you just for the sake of feeling more comfortable instead of having to bear through
Yes.
it. So it's an interesting point.
I think what's gonna, my opinion on it, is the whole future of consuming content. I think the most, and the reason of the big, provision and all of that, I think it's gonna be the experience. I think experiential. That's where the future heading. I think that's how we're gonna consume music. The experiential. A lot of the young consumers, who consume a lot of the content and who drove TikTok to a level that beyond, real, is the experience. And that was the beginning of it,
Mm-hmm.
creating these viral videos with snippets of music. And all of a sudden you became a TikTok star, or the song itself goes viral with the video, and nobody heard of the song or the beat, and becomes massive.
Mm-hmm.
And, it led to, major label signings and all of that. I think the next would be more the avatar, you being part of that song, being similar to what we see on video games. And what's the name of that big video game? The Roblox was the leader, and that was the beginning, I think, of that experiential kind of mixed reality world, metaverse, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a few names for it already. So I think that's where we're heading. Yes. Would I say that some of the DSPs, the digital streaming platform, will be gone? Not yet, but there's a time for everything, and new evolvement, technology, and things disappear. Certain things disappear. Like, who
Mm-hmm.
would think that some of these massive warehouses and buildings and factories and all of that were involved in the physical world, of CDs and vinyl and cassettes and all of that. It was a whole chain of not just real estate and offices and corporate offices and massive retail space and warehouses and trucking companies involved in all of them, factories gone. It's like it never existed before.
Yeah.
History,
Yeah.
So yes, there is a new we are we're coming to a new era. We're in it, actually, but how fast we jump into that kind of experiential content consumption, I don't know, could be 5, 10 years, maybe 5 years, maybe faster. I don't know. But it's coming. I see it. I do interview a lot of people. I come across a lot. I'm a big advocate and big fan of technology and AI and being innovators and going forward. And I see a lot. And I've been myself kind of seeing it going towards that. Gentlemen, what's on the forefront coming? Any new functions? Any new technology additions that you're adding to Staccato that let our viewers and listeners on and inspired musicians on Soundbreaker so they can go to the platform and say, hey, there's a new tool coming up or a new function?
Yeah, we've got a few things. So Adobe, like we mentioned, will be rolling out the more sort of fleshed out version for that soon. That's an easy way to get started with what we do if that's your method of content creation. We'll have a similar one on Canva as well for those people that like to use that instead. Then going back to kind of what do we have for our website, we have a V2 version of our model, our music model kind of coming out pretty much any week now. So that will be kind of an exciting sort of holdout and look forward to. So we appreciate you having us on here where we can kind of talk about those things, because a big part of this is really just getting it in the eyes and ears of musicians, because a lot of musicians aren't following tech like the three of us are, or a lot of people in this kind of AI and tech and business kind of world. They're just working on their craft. They're working on making the best performances they can. So the more that we can kind of do something like this, which is great, and communicate all these kind of exciting changes that we have, the more musicians are likely to hear about it and start to implement it into their workflow.
Amazing. Gentlemen, it was definitely a pleasure having the brainiacs, the geniuses, the creators, and the founders of Staccato, a platform that's definitely is extremely innovative and helpful for a lot of the upcoming and not just upcoming and existing producers, creators, artists who wants to, get involved and be more creative and enhance their creativity level in music. Definitely go to Staccato. Guys, thank you for joining us today at Soundbreaker. This concludes today's episode again of Soundbreaker. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned for new episodes. Thank you and see you.
Thanks, Bob.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.